Hello, Brendan. We're going to take a look at your follow the sun posting. Just a moment here. Let's get the screen share going. So I got it called up here, and let's just get right into it. Let's check it out. So this is your midday. All right. Okay, so yeah, I mean here you are using a directional light. Now, midday is going to be looking a little bit different this time of year than it would, say, in July. Midday, during late November, December now, is going to be, the sun is going to be lower in the sky as it moves across during the day than it would be, say, during the summer season when the sun is going to be much more overhead. And it's going to give you a different character during midday. Midday in the summer and midday in the winter look different. This is less about what time it is, but more about the nature of the light that we're looking at. Now, what you have here is probably about position number 2. If we think about this project as the sun being the key light, right now it looks like it's positioned at about number 2, because if I'm standing in front of this tree and the light is coming from this direction, is what it looks like in this photo, you would be at about position number 2. That's not short lighting, you're sort of on the side broad lighting, although I think it does lend itself to this, to this particular image. The composition is a little bit one-sided. There's some business back in here. All of this stuff back here doesn't really do anything for the image compositionally. It's just sort of there. A lot of times when we're on location, we start to forget about certain things like the background, right? If you were to see, in the studio, someone walking in the background of your image, right? You got the thing on the tabletop and you're looking and there's like, I don't know, an exit sign like right there in your background. You'd probably do something to get, to move yourself out of the way of it. Either, lower yourself or raise up or get yourself in a different position direction-wise and that kind of stuff. It's a little more challenging when you're outside because you can't move things and the sun is moving on its own. So there's all these other variables that come into it, which tend to get us to forget about looking critically at every little point in our photograph. So those kinds of things are not surprising to me that in many students that we wound up with business in the image that wasn't necessarily contributing to the composition at all. This is much more tight. We can see that you have some information up here, and that I'm seeing that my eye is meant to be led sort of in this direction here. As a photographer, as an image maker, it's your job to lead the viewer's eye to a place, right? To direct them as to where they're going. And an image like this, where we have the tree, we know we're supposed to look at the tree, but there's color back here, green and sort of this pale peach, and then some of the blue that's pulling the attention away from that. Now you backed up here on this image, and I would venture to say that these two are pretty close to each other in terms of the angle and the perspective. It's almost as if we just zoomed out or something like that. However, this is a more effective image in the end because we're getting much more of a use of these elements that are happening. We have the pole here, which now is grounded rather than just sort of floating there. In the other image right here, you don't see the bottom of it, so it just sort of hangs there. It's not the same pole, but you get the idea. But this pole has its grounding. You've got this wall that leads your eye backward. Now this turns more into a curve, and the green isn't as aggressive because you've got it again repeated here. So this is a much more effective image, even though, the tendency is for me to say, get closer and compose and crop out. But in this case, by just backing up that little bit, it improved the image quite a bit. Still don't need this water tower there though. If that was gone, it's there. I know this sounds like really picky, right? It sounds like, you'd like looking at every little moment that I'm making here. But if this was a drawing, certainly you would make all of those choices. You would be saying, do I want that water tower in there or not? Does it work compositionally? Just because it's there doesn't mean it would need to go there, or it needs to be there. And in photography, our choice is to move just slightly to crop it out, or adjust our depth of field to make the focus fall off very quickly so that that thing back there is nothing but a blur. Things like that that we can do to control it. But we want to be just as critical with how we are making our images and what we choose to be in our images as we would any other medium. The difference is it's gonna be there and we have to actively remove it rather than make a choice not to add it. As in drawing, we would make a choice not to put that tower in there, or this, you know, sign right here that's in your image. You know, you would make a choice to say, I'm not going to draw that in my drawing, and you would do that. But here you have to make a choice to remove it from the photograph by adjusting it out. Just another layer of complexity that happens when you're on location. So you can see this is these are all good examples of midday lighting, because you got the hard shadow. See how crisp and hard that is? Now these tend to be longer shadows because it's this time of year. And this time of year everywhere, no matter where you are, the shadows are going to be a little bit longer during midday. Even if, you know, in Florida, where I came from, you're much lower on the latitude there, and which means we're closer to the equator, which means that the sun is coming at a more of a direct angle than where we are. You're still going to get longer shadows at different times of year, and here you are. But the nature of those shadows still tend to be the same in terms of the hardness. This crisp line right here that is quintessentially all about midday. So let's take a look at what we have for your golden hour. Whoa, what happened there? Got a little bit of a craziness. There we are. So let's take a look at your golden hour, what we're exploring as golden hour. You can see definitely you have evidence per the sun that the sun is low in the sky. Now this is probably at the peak of golden hour, believe it or not, meaning any higher and it's not going to be golden hour anymore, because the sun is really going to be starting to illuminate and the shadows are going to start to get harder instead of the longer soft ones that you would typically see. The directional, the low angle that it's coming from is exactly what we're looking for. This is some beautiful color that you have going on here. I don't need any of this though. None of this building here contributes. If the photograph ended here, right? Boom, 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 something like that. That's all we really need to see, because that's what you're making the photograph of. All this other stuff is just sort of there. Again, this is a challenge when you're on location, and you know it's something that you progress into. This is much better. We're using these elements now, as opposed to here. This is just sort of there. It's not really being incorporated into the whole image. But an image like this, I can tell you are deliberately placing these elements where they belong. You've got the line going here. You've got this line converging in this direction. The horizon is straight across. All of this stuff seems to be very intentionally and thoughtfully put together. It says, to me, you are trying to communicate to me something. You are trying to organize this and show me something. As opposed to here, you know, I don't think you're really trying to tell me anything about that over there. And if you're not, why would it be there? It's kind of like words in a sentence, right? You don't want to put words in a sentence that aren't necessary, because you just want to get me to the point, right? Me being the viewer. So let's keep going. These are great lighting, by the way. We're just going through some of these, you know, compositionally. Here you're tightening up your composition again. So I know you know how to do it. I know you know the principles because you're showing me evidence of, oh, I know how to, you know, work with these elements to create an effective composition. It just gets away from us sometimes when we were otherwise working. Even this creates this beautiful sort of multiple layers, from the shadow here to the highlight, to the buildings, to the mountains, to the sky. Great work here, Brandon. This is really a nice image. This is a beautiful image, not just nice. This is quite beautiful in terms of the layer. This one gets a little dark, and I think that with just a little bit more of a longer exposure, it could open up and have some of the same qualities as we have here. Just gets a little bit dark. And I believe that was where you ended with your golden hour and started to think about twilight hour, which this is really more about twilight because you can see the sun is no longer above the horizon here. So this would really be more about twilight. But in either case, both of these are very similar to each other. One just looks like you kind of maybe stumbled right here. So it's like, whoops, whoops kind of thing. But anyway, this is definitely, definitely blue hour, and it's definitely a little bit dark. Your exposure has to change when you begin to have these lower lighting scenarios. Now, this is a good example of working with blue hour or twilight lighting because it has no discernible direction to the light, and the shadows are so soft and diffused that they don't appear to be there at all, but they are. I mean, you have light and dark, but they just appear to be so soft. Here again, you're taking advantage of formal sort of construct in order to formalize what otherwise might look sort of random and chaotic. So you're lining things up, you're making sure the horizons are sort of working. It looks like you're trying to position these in just the right place. All of that says you're telling me something, which is good. This one a little less. This one's a little bit less sort of composed, if we were to say. It's as if you have a bunch of words, but you haven't formed them into a sentence yet. You got all the elements here, they just haven't come together yet. This is super cool. Shooting over the top of a car, it gives you this really sort of glassy sort of thing that's going on there. It's a really nice effect because, unless because I can kind of identify this, it looks like it's a car hood. I'm presuming it is. Otherwise, it's a giant sheet of something that you're shooting over. In any event, it's a really interesting effect, and I think you're using it quite well here. This is kind of an interesting sort of take. Again, here we are. This is still probably getting toward right on the line of blue hour, right? And so it's something that you got kind of keep identifying as you go. I think you started to identify mixed lighting after that, yeah. So mixed lighting, I see how you were interpreting it. You were interpreting it as using a variety of color settings in your camera versus whatever the lighting was outdoors. And I think if you were to explore other students' solutions, and if you were to look at the video that I put together and posted on YouTube about mixed lighting, you'd see that your interpretation is a bit off. What we were looking for is artificial light next to natural light taken at blue hour. We take it at blue hour so that the light is low enough in intensity to balance out with the artificial light, so that the artificial light and the daylight are of equal intensity in the image, and so therefore they feel like they're very much balanced. It's a trick to come up to pull off really well, and you got to get your timing just right. Sarah Steele has an excellent image. If you want to jump on the blog and take a look at her, she's got an excellent image of downtown Pueblo. There's an area where all these neon signs are, and she's got an excellent image kind of like right in the middle of all of her shots. Some of them work, some of them don't, but the one she has there is a great example of what we're looking for mixed lighting. The rest of your images, I think you have good qualities. I think you have other areas where you'd improve. I would say overall you understand pretty well with the lighting scenario. It's just a matter of gathering enough experience to be confident outside, to be paying attention to everything, so that these wonderful images here that you're able to make are not mistakes or just random. They're much more deliberate, and you can consistently produce these images over and over again outside. So let's take a look at your final takeaway images. Let's see if we find them. Here we are. Oop. I like to make sound effects when I'm here. There's nobody else to make sound effects to. For the project, it shows that you made 12 new images. Very good. So yeah, I see that you're saying you like the darker imagery, you like to use shadow and things like that. This is a powerful image. I think this is a wonderful image because of the light, the way that you're getting this balance of light. Ooh, did that again. The way you're getting the balance of light and dark. You know, the quality of light is exquisite. Here we do have some business that doesn't belong. You know, these cars are kind of getting in the way. If you lowered yourself just a little bit, we could have cut those out because you wouldn't have seen them over the hill here. It also would have helped to kind of get around this. This is a tough shot, you know, to make. I've been clearly been here. This is out in front of our building. It's a tough shot because there's a lot of like stuff out there to try to shoot around and try to work out. My suggestion is a shallow depth of field out here so you can sort of diffuse some of this stuff. But the lighting, man, Brendan, this looks great. Really, really good. Here we're working with a pretty high contrast of light. You can see you're shooting from deep shadow into bright light. This is very difficult to do. You're handling it fairly well, and your camera's handling it fairly well. It's right on the edge of being too bright out here. And plus, again, these elements, although you've got them relatively straight up and you've got this line that's happening that's sort of nicely sort of rolling, the rest of this information here with the cars and so on aren't quite that interesting to look at, I suppose. The repetition of shape, that's always something that will help you. In my other photo class, which concentrates mostly on just composition, that's a 100 level class, mostly just on composition, we do exercises like where we're identifying things like this, where we have a repetition of the same shape over and over again in our photographs, which allow us to guide the eye through the photograph. Here we're taking advantage of a kind of an anomaly, a lens flare, where your lens is not able to handle the intensity. Don't do too many of these. This actually can damage the sensor in your image because this is just way too bright of a light source to be pointing your lens at. I mean, it's not going to destroy it right away, but it isn't something you want to make a habit of doing very often. Very nice portrait. This is it's quite a beautiful portrait. Your choice to use a shallow depth of field here, sharp on the figure, shallow out of the rest of it. The exposure is perfect on the figure, a little bit bright in the background, but it's okay because what we're supposed to be looking at is the figure. So if you had this in more focus, all this stuff back here would have been competing for attention, which you probably wouldn't have wanted, but nice job. This one is a little less because of the hat, because she has this hat, you got this shadow area. Now, remember, when we're in the studio and we use the white cards to kind of bounce light from the main light source into that, just to illuminate a little bit more, that would have been a solution here that could have just brightened her eyes just a little bit. You can have shadows, but what we're looking for is a little bit of luminosity here in her eyes. Because that's where we look. As human beings, we're going to look at the other person's eyes. And so when they're dark like that, it feels like something isn't quite perfect. So that would have helped if you had just done that. This limb isn't really contributing, and nor is this little area. I point these out because I think you have a lot of potential with these photographs, and I want you to really be paying attention to them as you move forward, paying attention to small details like this. They can really shift your photographs from one being really great or, you know, just sort of not quite working as well as they could. This is an excellent one as well, where you're kind of moving deep into the into the atmosphere here. You're getting a lot of what I call atmospheric depth going on here because you have the lines that lead you into the background. This isn't necessary. This little guy right here, we want him out and probably crop in just a little bit tighter so that what we have is this lead in to what it is that you want us to see, which is presumably right back in here. This guy is only serving to pull us away. It's kind of yanking on us in this direction. Very good. This one got just a little bit dark on you. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover with you. I wanted to go over your images and talk to you a little bit about what I'm seeing. None of what I'm saying is meant to be criticism at all. They're observations of what I see. when I'm doing my photography, I'm looking at my own work and in a lot of ways doing the same thing. I'm looking at it and I'm critically kind of breaking it down. You know, if you're doing the same, you'll see a lot of this stuff, you know, that I'm seeing, because it doesn't take, you know, years and years of experience to see, oh, that doesn't seem to be working, or that doesn't seem to be contributing. And so you look at your imagery that way in order to identify what should be there and what shouldn't be there. And with photography, it's a subtractive medium, meaning you have the whole world and then you have to erase the things that you don't want via cropping or, you know, depth of field, where there's shallow depth of field, things are really out of focus in the background, stuff like that. So I've really enjoyed having you in class. You've been an excellent student. I hope to see you in many more of these types of courses, maybe video and maybe you know, some printing and some editing versions of photography and things like that. With that, you have a wonderful break, get some rest, and we will see you in 21. All right, bye-bye now.